Okay, so the patients obviously are going to be a bit more interesting. We'll add patient. Right. Obviously, I do need to fix up the header and some of the title and so on and so forth, but just to get down to the important stuff. Okay, I know I'm going to need a data source control. I plan on at least 2 here, right? Just as I'm going to do this one with both the grid and the details view, the way we did the other one the other day. So the first one will be for my drop-down list for my filter, my doctor list. So DS doctor list. Just using my same connection string. Everything's done with stored procedures, of course. So this one just gives me my list of doctors, and in fact, it's almost identical. It is identical, I guess, to the one on the other page that I did, right? Just returning the alphabetically sorted list of doctors in formal name format, last name, comma, first name, and away we go. All right, so that's all it has to do. Then I will add, oh, I don't want an enter. I'll just add another data source for the actual patients. So this can be my DS patients. I'm planning ahead to filter, right? So I might as well get my filter drop-down list in place. That way I can reference it right away the first time through the configuration. So I'll just throw on a couple things here from the standard section. I'll throw on a label, okay, where it says select or filter, filter patients by doctor, by primary care physician. And then I'll put a drop-down list. Give it a meaningful name. DDL doctor list. This time I'm going to choose my data source, which is my doctor list data source, showing the full name of the doctor. My display text, the ID, is stored internally. But I'm going to add my all option. All doctors with my usual flag value of 0 that works well with it's an integer identity primary key. I'll enable auto postback. That's my only filter, so I can just post back right away. The other key thing, remember what it was? So I don't overwrite my all option, I have to set append data bound items to true. So it will just add the data coming to the database to the list. Okay, so I did all that just so I could now finally configure my data source, right, for patients. I'll configure that data source. Using SQL, my select would be my select patients, right, by doctor. It's already set up with the parameter for the doctor ID. My flag value, if it's 0, it'll return all the patients, irregardless of doctor. So select the appropriate stored procedures for each of the action queries. So patient update, patient insert, and patient delete. Not doctor delete, patient delete. Just double check that I have them all right. Ah, see, I have the doctor insert. I had a feeling I messed up something. Okay, so they're all correct now. Next, so the doctor ID to filter by will come from a control, my drop-down list for doctor list. By the way, all this really does is when you're testing the query, it provides a default value. It doesn't have any other effect, but anyway, just means I can click OK here without having to type the 0. And I should see all patients, right? Notice this, we have a timestamp. Woo! Remember concurrency, right? So all of our stored procedures are set up in this database that it's going to check if the timestamp has changed before it does an update or a delete, right? So that's good. It gives us our time for our last 3 slides PowerPoint. Also as well, notice we do have the full name of the doctor here, eagerly loaded in, right? This is based on a view that has that information. So I'll just finish, and there we go. Okay, so now I'm ready to have a grid view. Based on my data source for patients, right? Now, obviously, there's a few issues here we're going to have to deal with. So I'll just go into Edit Columns, take out the ID, don't want that. The patient summary doesn't really work very well in a grid, right? So the OHIP, first name, last name, and so on. We'll come back and deal with those. The foreign key, right? I've shown you can start with either one of these and modify its properties. Convert it to a template. I'll get some formatting going. I don't know if I cared for that sand and sky. Let's try brown sugar. Nah, I don't like that at all. Autumn. Professional. We'll go with professional today. Okay. So we have our columns, right? We've edited those. We're going to enable paging, sorting, editing, and deleting. And I'll go into edit templates. So we'll do 2 things here in the doctor, right? We'll edit the text is bound not to the doctor ID, but to the full name of the doctor. So we display that in item mode. In the edit item template, we'll delete the text box and we'll throw in our drop-down list. The data source, the population of the data comes from our doctor list data source control. So it shows us our alphabetical list of doctors. Key thing is we make sure the binding of the selected value is bound to our actual foreign key, the doctor ID in the patient table. We don't want to enable auto postback because this is just something we're going to change and then we'll submit the form when we do our update. Okay, so that's that. I'll end template editing. Our command column, yeah, we're going to want to template that one. We're going to leave all the others for now because we're going to see how we can fix that up with dynamic, right? Okay. I could fix these titles though. First name and last name, just fix the header text here a bit. And that's a pretty long name. Okay, that's probably good enough. Okay, so there they are, right? Yeah, that's good. That's fine. Also, I'll just go into Edit Templates, go to our command column. I want to my delete, do my on client click. Oh. All right. Okay. All right, so that gives us our grid. Oh, I forgot one thing when I was in there. I meant to add the add new. So if I go to the header, of the grid view here, I'll stick a link button. I know I'm going fairly fast today, but we've done all this before, so might as well get it done quickly. Add new as the text. Set the ID btn add new, and then we'll add the click event handler. So I'll be able to swap the visible property with my details view. Okay, now I'm done in here for now. All right, so I will just add a details view. Oh, I guess it didn't add. There we go. So I will set same format. A few things I want to set. The default mode, I'll have it come up in insert mode. Enable view state, I'll set to false. Visible, initially I won't see it, so I'll set that to false. Oh. And the ID I'll set to DV patient. Did I set the ID of the grid? No, I didn't. So GV patients. Okay. So with the details view then, usually kind of make it around the same width more or less. Choose the data source. Data source again is my DS patients. I will only enable inserting. I'll edit fields, take out the ID, take out the summary. Just quickly fix this. TR. Just have to template this. This time I'll save myself a bit of trouble. Convert this one to the template. That's just the insert item template I need to worry about. Do the old drop-down list. Showing my full name of the doctor to choose from. Storing the ID as the value, which I can then bind that selected value to the foreign key doctor ID of the patient record set. Okay. In terms of events then, okay, for the details view, we use that funnel event, right? The item command. Good spot to put our swapping the visible properties back and forth. So GV patients, when I do add new, set the visible property equal to false. And my details view, visible property equal to true. And then just reverse that no matter what we click in the details view. I cannot type at all. False. Oh, I missed a letter. All right, so that's the basics in place. Now we're going to see some problems, but that's okay. Okay, so I can filter, hopefully, right? Just see doctors by Gregory House, or patients by these different doctors, go back to all doctors. Oh, one thing I didn't do is my empty data template. I meant to do that and I forgot. So remind me when I go back in, just so it says something on the screen instead of just disappearing altogether, because we don't have any patients assigned to that doctor. Now, where do I want to show you next? Let's deal with the timestamp issue. I have a whole PowerPoint set up for it, but I'll show you the problem. If I click Edit, right? Well, I won't even change anything. I'll just click Update, and I'll get an error. Oh, where's my sound? Okay. SQL variant is incompatible with timestamp, right? Well, that doesn't tell me all that much, except that it hints that it's obviously something to do with the timestamp issue, right? So we'll get to our PowerPoint and we'll see exactly what's going on and how to fix it. So yes, I have a PowerPoint up in Blackboard on concurrency, right? If you're using a timestamp, the row version field, right? A couple things we need to know about using it with web forms. First of all, of course, make sure your stored procedures are set up to actually pay attention to the timestamp, right? That's important, but that's already been done for us. We can double check, but trust me, these ones are. So the timestamp value should be projected in our select. Well, it is. We saw that when we ran our configuration wizard and we did the test, we saw that that timestamp column was there, right? So here's what we haven't done yet. We have to add the timestamp to the data key names attribute, okay, of our bound control. It has to be there because essentially there's nowhere else that works. Nowhere else that works. And then remove any parameters from the actual data source related to the timestamp, right? So that's why we were getting that error. Remember it said it couldn't convert SQL variant and so on? So what we have to do is I have to come into, let's start with the data source, DS patients. If we come in here, we'll see several references as a delete parameter, okay, the timestamp type object. That's the issue, is it cannot easily convert, okay, this timestamp, the data type that's used in SQL Server, into something that the web form can actually work with very easily. So the simple fix is delete these parameters. Don't need it here in delete. There won't be one in insert because you don't care about a timestamp when you're adding a new record, right? But for the update parameters, we'll find it here as well. So I'll just delete it. Don't need it, right? Okay. So that's step number one, take it out. The other thing we have to do is make sure it's in the data key names, right? So if I come to my grid, go back to the source, the opening tag for the grid is up here. We can scroll over, find data key names. Remember, this is the one that keeps track of the unique identifier, right, for each record, which is just ID. Data key names equals ID is correct. However, it's just as correct to say ID, comma, timestamp. In theory, that's even more specific, right, in terms of the unique identifier. And what it does is it takes it out of being a separate parameter and just stores it in here. It doesn't hurt the data key names because it's just as unique, and the data key names attribute is set up to accept a comma separated list, right? That's necessary. It has to be that way to support composite keys anyway, right? If you had a combination of fields that made up a primary key, you'd have to comma separate them in here. So it's a little bit of a programmer's trick that we can store the timestamp here in data key names. It doesn't have to appear inside the grid itself. It doesn't have to be a parameter because it gets passed as part of the unique identifier for the row and provides the data back again. What we're doing here is we don't have to convert it. Okay, we don't have to convert it into something and store it and then convert it back again by sticking it in data key names, right? So that's it. It will now work and allow us to actually do an update. So if I bring that over, sorry, it always is opening on my other screen. We'll edit this patient, David Stovell, right? And I can change the expected yearly visits to 5 or 6. I might get an issue about this format of the date, but we'll see. No, it worked. So I was able to change it to 6, right? it was satisfied. I didn't have a problem with concurrency because I wasn't editing it anywhere else. Okay. Now, if I can simulate, if I open this in another tab as well, then it's like two different users, okay, are actually connecting to the same web form, right? So if in the first one I edit Freddie Flintstone, come over to the second one, edit Freddie Flintstone. Over here, if I change 6 to 2, so Freddie Flintstone has 2 expected visits, update that. It updated fine. If I come back to the first one, let's change something else. Let's just rename Freddie to Fred, right? Notice it has 2 already. Oh, darn. That's because of that other silly tool in Visual Studio. I forgot to turn that off. To show you concurrency, I have to turn it off. So that update will work. Sorry. Back in Visual Studio. Yes, go ahead. Back in Visual Studio. Remember this thing I said was a pain in the rear end? This browser link plugin, right? It's great most of the time, but what it's doing is it synchronizes multiple pages looking at the same information. So that's why when I changed the information in one, it immediately updated in a different tab. Okay, it's good when you're doing some kinds of development, but I don't want it to do it now, or I cannot, no matter how hard I try, simulate concurrency, right? So what I have to do is uncheck enable browser link. There we go. So now changes made in one tab won't affect the other. So if I'll select this, open a separate tab, paste, edit the same. I can do Fred again. I'll edit Fred. I'll edit Fred over here. So I have 2 users changing it. I'll change this to 7. Update. Okay, it's 7. Good. Say, because I turned off the browser sync, it didn't synchronize that change. Otherwise, a moment ago, if I hadn't done that, it would still say 7 here, right? Okay. Now I'll change the name just to Fred. When I click update, notice that it didn't update. It didn't update because my stored procedure did its job, right? It detected the timestamp had changed, and it actually just nullified the update. The only thing I'm missing is I haven't told the user. If they aren't paying attention, they might assume that they've actually successfully changed the name from Freddie to Fred, right? And they wouldn't realize that, no, their changes were overwritten by the changes somebody else made, and theirs were just rejected because the record had been changed. Okay, so the last thing about concurrency we have to do then is give feedback to the user, right? Well, we saw that, it was on my earlier PowerPoint slide. If we go to the after event for an update here for patients, if I come over to the events and come into the updated event, in the event handler here, right, I can say if e.affected records or affected rows. Okay. If that is 0, then I know it didn't actually update anything. We don't have an exception, right? But obviously it failed, right, to actually do the update. As I mentioned in the PowerPoint slide, in the next slide, what you could actually do, okay, to check for concurrency conflicts in the event of in the after event of the data source, right? You can check affected rows as 0. A better thing might be in your stored procedure, if you find that there's a concurrency error, if the timestamp has changed, you could actually raise an exception. If you do that, then in your code in the client, you could look for an exception, check the message, see if there's a custom comment in there about concurrency error, and give a very specific message, right? Failing that, okay, just checking affected rows should do the trick in most situations. If you're confident there's no other reason why you would have failed to actually update, then odds are it's because of concurrency, and you're pretty safe to go ahead and take this simple approach that I'm showing you right now. So I can just say if the affected rows is 0, right, Then, well, I already have. Oh, do I? That was on the other page. I need a label error again. LBL error. I haven't created it yet, but that's okay. I can do that in a second. .text. I don't have IntelliSense because I don't have the control. Update failed. Another user has modified the patient while you were looking at it. Hurry up and work faster, you silly person. Okay, you get the idea. Okay, so I have to create that label, plus of course I should in page load, right? Set the label dot text equal to an empty string. And I better get a label on there, right? So I don't know, maybe I'll stick it under here. I'll stick a label. Label. Label error. Let me drag my style sheet on so I have my DD validator style. And I can make the label CSS class DD validator. Notice I really don't have to change the text now because it always gets cleared in page load anyway. All right. Poor man's approach to concurrency, but you know, if there's no other reason why it would have failed, odds are you're safe doing it this way. So I'll just cause a concurrency error again. So I'll do the same trick. I'll open this page in 2 tabs, simulating 2 different users. Let's edit Barney this time. I have to make sure I go into edit mode on both because at that point it refreshes the timestamp. Okay. So I'll change Barney to 1 and Rubbly. Oh, I'll save that change. Update. And over here, I'll change the doctor, okay, to Gregory House. Click Update, and there we go. There's my message. Update failed. Another user has modified the patient. So, yes, the stored procedure did its job, but at the same time, now I've also given the user feedback so they understand that concurrency prevented the update from happening. Whew, that's a fair bit of stuff done in a very short period of time. Can I do add new? Yep, so here's my form. Oh, I meant to add header text, but what we're mainly missing here is the fact that I don't have validation. Plus, we have some new database errors to think about. For example, let me cancel for a second. I'm going to copy. Well, actually, it's easier to show you on an update. I'll copy this David Stovall, whoever that guy is, his OHIP number. If I edit Freddie Flintstone and put the OHIP number in there, there's a unique constraint in the database. No 2 people can have the same OHIP number. No validation controls in the page will handle that. It's only a database error. So that's an example of one I have to fix with my approach to handling database errors, right? So yeah, we have a bit more work to do. So, but we've shown you how to handle database errors. So you can actually add that in. Let's just quickly do the dynamic validation here. So what I need is a class for patient, right? Oh, we're out of class time, aren't we? Oh, I'm having so much fun. Sorry, we're over time. Well, it's the same idea. I'll just share with you the class, and then I'll let you do the rest. So let me just come here. Oh, no, go into models. Let's add our patient class. So just add a class for patient. Okay, I actually have this one ready. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go to my lab files where I have I thought I put it here. Yeah, okay. Now, it'll get some errors, but I can just fix most of them by adding the using for system component model data annotations. So here we go. Look at all this metadata I'm supplying then. So the OHIP number, not only is it required, the data annotations have a regular expression, right? So I can pass a regular expression, allows exactly 10 digits, no more, no less, no other letters, okay, or characters other than digits, right? The first name, okay, is just required. The last name is required and has a maximum length of 30 characters. Date time notice is nullable, but we're checking with a regular expression that it's in a certain format for the date, and we're certifying the data format string to be only entered year, month, day in that format, right? Expected yearly visits, besides being required, we have a range. There we go. So now I have a class. All I would have to do in my patients page is come up to the page init, which I'll fake by copying page load, and grid view patients dot enable dynamic data, type of patient. I'll need to add the using. Okay, by the way, a keyboard shortcut for that, if you don't want to try and hit the little light bulb as control period, right, that gets you your pop-up here using medical office S18 models, right? So now it knows what a patient is. So then inside here, all I have to do is, wherever I have a bound field, change it to a dynamic field. Okay, a little copy-paste magic will work. Search and replace would have been faster, but it takes more brain power. And if I come down to my grid view, I can do the same as my details view. Do the same thing here. Wasn't that easier than going into 16 different templates, adding 2-3 validation controls in each one? Oh, come on over. We're almost done. So I go add new, click insert. Oh, I didn't add my validation summary control, but you can see it's complaining about each one. Has the right validations on there. If I edit, take out something, right? Then I've got my validation working. I just need my summary to show me the actual messages. So that has got to be a lot faster than manually adding all the validation controls. Okay? All right, I'll let you go. Thank you for your time.